Today I want to talk about neuromarketing, what it is, and how we can unlock human emotions to better understand and predict behavior. My name is Michelle Adams, and I'm the founder of Marketing Brainology. I hope we can stay connected. I can be found on Twitter at Marketing Braino. Now you might ask, what is Marketing Brainology? Well, we're a leading-edge neuromarketing consulting firm. What we do is measure emotion and behavior and understand the human decision-making process, translating consumer and shopper insights into action that the businesses can apply immediately. So let's understand our brains. Our brains are very complex. In fact, understanding the non-conscious is really half of it that we need to achieve. It's a complexity combination of rational and emotional drivers. And that complexity, in fact, some researchers would say to the tune of 90% of what we're doing is happening in the non-conscious space. This makes it extremely difficult to listen to what people are saying because essentially they're not aware of their non-conscious as much. So what they're articulating is what they believe to be true, but might not be. So what I want to use is an example, and you might have watched Meet the Parents. So let's take a look at this scene. Do you remember this scene? Do you remember the potential discomfort that he was going to experience by his future father-in-law? Have you ever been in a situation, an uncomfortable situation, perhaps of telling a white lie? Let's see what happens.
Now, these aren't 100% accurate, right?
Well, you'd be surprised how accurate they are. They can tell fairly easily if someone's lying or not. Now I'm going to ask you some questions, and all you have to do is answer yes or no.
Okay.
All right. Let's give it a whirl. Did you fly on an airplane today?
Yes, I did.
No peeking. Did we eat pot roast for dinner tonight?
Yes.
Was it undercooked?
Now the obvious are those direct questions. Did you do X or did you do Y? But the harder ones are those discomfort levels when somebody's interviewing you about a sensitive topic.
Relax, relax, the needles are jumping. Have you ever watched pornographic videos?
No. I mean, well, I don't.
Yes or no?
Have you ever been in that situation? Has your heart ever raced, trying to think of the words that you would use? What would the white lie be for you? So as we go into this journey together, there's a book that I recommend. It's a metaphor book, a story, but it helps us understand the dimension of the ant and the elephant, to know your journey. An author actually out of Dallas, Texas, named Vince Posetti, has done this journey. He equates the elephant to the subconscious mind and the ant to our conscious mind. We actually need that ant. That ant is the strategy that directs the elephant, our non-conscious or subconscious. The combination of the two and understanding they both exist becomes critical. So if you're being introduced to the idea of the non-conscious, go on this journey through this story. I think it's helpful. Now, what I'm really needing you to do is to see the world in a new way. We need to wear new glasses. The way we've seen the world has been through our lens. Now what we need to do is see it through the lens of our shoppers and our consumers. Now, if you're first getting into neuromarketing, there's an excellent book called Neuromarketing for Dummies. What I like about this book is it gives a basis for the science behind it and many of the terms and vocabularies that one should know in getting into this neuromarketing space. They're the consumer insights for the brain, from the brain, and understanding how our brains work and applying it to better marketing is the goal. So there are basically three challenges that we have in our industry. One is that what we are faced with is irrational behavior. Two, what we say is not equal to what we think and what we do. And the third thing is, do we really have the right tools available to us today to measure this non-conscious emotive space? So there is a spectrum out there. What are these methods that are available to us, and how do we apply them? Many times we think of neuroscience, we think of EEG and functional MRI. But in reality, this spectrum includes a wide variety of tools in our toolkit. Everything from facial coding to eye tracking to behavioral economics, implicit response, and other psychology measures. Biometrics is one that we just saw in that video clip. Eye tracking, facial coding, body tracking fall under biometrics. Behavioral economics is really applying neuroscience and psychology to consumer behavior. Trial and error. If we try it this way, will the isolated effect of that change behavior among our consumers and our shoppers? Now, sensory logic is one that I recommend because it is based on a lot of academic learnings. In fact, the journey through facial coding, and maybe you had watched the sitcom Lie to Me. It was based on the premise of the ability to read faces and catch people in a lie. Were you familiar with that?
Lie to me. Some say silence is golden.
He's not gonna talk.
But when a case needs to be solved,
I don't have much faith in words.
deception expert Dr. Cal Lightman believes actions
I know when you're lying.
always speak louder than words.
Truth is written on all our faces.
The average person lies 3 times per 10 minutes of conversation.
That guy's lying his ass off.
Yes, he is.
This group of behavioral psychologists who are at the heart of the show are ostensibly human lie detectors.
Is there anything you wouldn't do to protect your son? Watch yourself. We betray ourselves with what's in our face. We betray our intentions through involuntary movements in our face and in our bodies.
Everyone lies, so it can take us anywhere. One liar down, 6.5 billion to go.
So how proficient are you at detecting consumers in a lie? These lies are not intentional. They are telling us what they think to be true. But the reality is there's many dynamics going on, including body language and nonverbal. So I recommend the book On Emotion by Dan Hill. He has several books out there, Emotionomics and About Face. So pick up one of these books and become familiar. And he has several white papers out there available to us. Now let's talk about the mirror neuron and what that means. It really involves being able to see something and our body in the non-verbal, in the non-conscious way is mirroring it. Whether it's me rubbing my nose, pulling my ear, your body is mirroring that whether you know it or not. So one of our goals in neuromarketing is to show things that are in that motion, in that movement that we're wanting to mirror, whether it's the anticipation of something, the suggestion of eating a great food product or drinking a great beverage, but anticipating it and the way we would want to do it and actually simulating that is using our mirror neuron to its best ability. Now I want to talk about a book named Roger Dooley has written. He's based out of Austin and he has quite a bit going on in this space. What he does talk about is basically Brainfluence. This is a book and he gives us 100 tips of how to apply neuromarketing in sales and marketing programs. It's exposure through priming or scarcity, 2 concepts he brings up. Those are important concepts. It is the exposure to images and words and or key marketing at key times and it all impacts attitudes and behavior. So I would suggest following Roger Dooley's blog and you'll learn more as we go. Now there are 2 concepts out there that I want to introduce. One is approaching and the other is balancing novelty and familiarity. By that I mean when we're approaching something, when we're anticipating or moving forward, it's a stronger emotional connection with the viewer. It's more socially connected, we're more emotionally engaged, and more attuned to the present. Now, the tricky thing with new products is balancing novelty and connecting it to a familiar state, a familiar product. That is the challenge that marketers have. How can we get them interested in anticipating something new, but it's a foreign object, so that especially these breakthrough new emerging categories, new combination food products, like yogurt in the beginning days or drinkable yogurt. It's a concept that's foreign. So how do you attach it to something that they're familiar with? That's one trick of applying neuromarketing. So a couple of books that I would recommend reading are listed here. The Buying Brain by Dr. Purdeep is an excellent book that talks about the total consumer experience and how it's measured neurologically, how the shopper is engaged with the total shopping experience, and how consumers are responding to ads and other stimuli that they're seeing. Carolyn Winnett also is out there and has a lot to say about music in the brain and also takes us through a journey of neuroscience. Brand-Washed I put out there by Martin Lindstrom. It's an interesting book, and I often like to read the books the critics are the most critical of. I find there are little nuggets of information in every book, and I actually enjoyed reading Brand-Washed. Another book, Biology, was one of the first books that I ever read in this space, and I recommended it to others because it does help us understand things about what we think is happening and how the brain's really responding. And another one that I've read more recently is Incognito. That one talks a lot about our peripheral vision and things that are going on in the non-conscious. So the more you read, the more I think you'll put pieces together of this puzzle that we're all on a journey together for. Now let's talk about behavioral economics. It really is as simple as experimenting. There's a wealth of information, and folks like Will Leach and Brain Juicer, John Kernan with Brain Juicer have been in this space. But the legends go back to our founding fathers of behavioral economics, and I'll talk about those in a second. Really what we're talking about is try and try again. Now, behavioral economics, interesting thing. I've used a company, whether it's Sentient Research, Aaron Reed does a great job of bringing the academics into the business world. He took what was a traditional conjoint equation and added the emotional weight, that emotional variable. There's excellent white papers out by Sentient Research. But emotion and rationality is one that I would recommend. Applying it actually gives you different answers. So doing a side-by-side conjoint in the traditional way and doing one layering in this new emotional measurement gives you different answers, particularly around when you're trying to measure something that is foreign, a concept, a new promotion or a new bundle or pricing scheme that they're not familiar with. That will be better suited for this new emotional conjoint measure. Dan Ariely, he's one of my heroes. He absolutely rocks the space. He has more content out there, more TED Talks, more available online than almost anybody out there, and has been doing it for a very long time. He introduced the concept of our irrational brain through books like Predictably Irrational and The Upside of Irrationality, The Honest Truth About Dishonesty, a wealth of information out there, but basically his summation is that we are dishonest, and it is a situation and a reality that we need to identify and then we need to work around. It's not intentional, it's just our human behavior. Now I love this clip because what they're doing is walking you down, leading the witness into a box, or in this case, into a sound.
What do you like better, your mother or a puppy?
My mother.
Your mother? Why?
Because she takes care of me.
And puppies don't?
No.
Puppies only care about themselves?
Yeah.
Puppies are very selfish?
Yeah.
Do you hate puppies?
No.
Do you hate puppies?
Yeah.
Do you feel like I could get you to say anything with this machine?
No. Yes.
Yeah.
So Jimmy Kimmel has a way of making everything humorous. But his point here that I hope you take away is the fact that we do lead our witnesses, our consumers, that we ask them to honestly give their opinion. And many times they're responding to our own reactions, our interviewer biases. So keep this in mind as I talk about the lie to me phenomenon that's happening out there in marketing research. Now, another one out there, a book like Contagious. We talk about, Jonan Berger talks about social epidemics. I think it's important for us to understand that there are triggers and there is social currency, and those are two powerful things, especially in the social media space. We are influenced as human beings by things that are going on around us. Whether the social currency is having the newest outfit out there, the most branded products available, or it's just having the most friends on LinkedIn or Instagram, or having the most views on YouTube. But understanding and being able to measure how people are reacting and what their currency is critical. So I recommend this book, Contagious. Now, Sway. Sway was important for me to have read to understand effects like the chameleon effect and providing a voice. People really do want to be heard. And letting them be a part of evaluation or improving, it does improve the perception of fairness. So the deeper the hole they dig themselves into, the more they continue to dig. I recommend this book, especially if you play in the word-of-mouth marketing area. Sway will get you thinking in a different way. Now, a second trend that I like to talk about is cross-pollination. This example of combining things in our toolkit is one way to get around some of this measurement problems that we have or we've had, where we're not accurately measuring the non-conscious space. So things like virtual shopping, one of my favorite techniques to do to simulate what sales will be like, especially if we work with the sales groups. It's important for us to be able to say what they're actually thinking about a particular product arrangement or a particular concept, but it's also important to understand how it's going to translate into sales. But layering that with implicit or explicit association is an additional way. Did the way that they associate the product change when we changed an element, whether that's the promotion or a particular credential on a product line, or we've changed the packaging in some way or the aisle configuration. Now, a case study that was done by Decision Insight, I think is a good example of the kind of research we need to do. We need to invest in ourselves. So taking a particular product, this one was done by Integer and Decision Insight. They took 5 or 6 or 7 categories and looked at the effect of 2 things, featuring products with 2 different concepts of messaging. One way to take that message was to add it into, for example, razors. I could take a benefit statement, or I could use one that is about social influence. And the benefit statement and the social influence have a very distinct difference, not necessarily in sales, but in the made by a trusted brand and being a market leader. We saw differences, especially among the non-users. So the non-users actually were relying on that social influence message. So how do we hit the bullseye? How do we actually take it to the next level for our marketing research industry? There are some keys to top neuromarketing behaviors for the future. One that I recommend is using the mirror neuron. That means really knowing our consumers and our shoppers at a level that gets beyond demographics. It gets to geography. What are those folks? What's their mirror if they're living in the South versus living in the Northeast? Living in a cold spot or city versus one that's warmer. It changes everything. The way we're mirroring that environment needs to be conducive to the folks that we're trying to connect to. 2, providing social currency. What is it that you can provide as your brand is trying to move out and expand to new markets? Do you know your social currency? Can you provide something that they want to share? One great example, I think, is the Doritos Crashing the Super Bowl campaign that's been going on for years at Frito-Lay. Those commercials are very humorous, they're consumer generated, and they're shareable. So not only are they trying to get our opinion, but they're trying to get us to share what's been created by others like us. 3, using triggers. What is it that we can trigger a particular, more positive emotional response? What can we trigger within a store to get folks to buy more? It's not some crazy, subconscious, subliminal technique that we're trying to use. We're just trying to connect better with consumers and shoppers. 4, how do we provide incentives and values? That requires understanding the consumer. And incentive and values vary by generation, they vary again by culture, and they vary by geography. So we're using that big data to better understand and be able to come up with more specific campaigns and triggers that are applicable. Incentives vary, and we should do them appropriately to where they fit the consumer base that we're trying to connect to. And lastly, tell stories. Stories, as we know, are powerful ways to show a brand is relevant to them. Our brand stories are an excellent way of applying neuromarketing. So what I want to leave you with is, did you learn something about neuromarketing that you didn't know before? Are you willing to learn more? I would highly recommend that you continue to explore this space, and I want to walk and take you on that journey together. I'm Michelle Adams, founder of Marketing Brainology.